Hello, guys. Welcome back to Korean Tapas. This is episode 31. Long time no see. On my left, oh, nice t shirt. Hi, Jisang. How are you?
Good afternoon. A new T-shirt only in €4, I guess.
4 years. I always wear the same one, Republic of Korean Army. It's a fantastic t shirt. It gives me more power. I feel more strong. Minky, how are you, man?
I feel really great. I am with my parents now. Actually, they're in living room. So yeah, I had a wonderful weekend so far.
Very nice. New apartment, new life. It's fantastic. Happy for you. Very good. So yes, today we wanted to do some sort of chat with Jisang. Jisang is a man of culture, a man that travels nonstop here and there, and we wanted to ask him questions about his recent trip to China. Yeah, you travel a lot, Jisang. You are a traveler. I envy you when I see that you are maybe in Spain or maybe in France, maybe in all those places. But how was it? How was China?
It was simply better than my expectation. Simply better than my expectation because, for your information, it was not my first time to China, but this time I went to Shanghai. But before I went to Beijing and some Beijing, Qingdao, and some rural area around. But as you know, Shanghai is one of the most developed city in China, so obviously it was above my expectation, and the image has been changed totally. So as a result, it was a fun trip.
Very nice. Was it pleasure or business?
Yeah, for pleasure, for pleasure. I was there only for like 4 days.
How long does it take from Seoul to Shanghai?
The flight itself doesn't take that long. It's like hour and a half. But the
That's
thing
it?
is, yeah.
Wow.
But the thing is, unlike other Asian countries, the visa is necessary,
Oh,
and to receive a visa, every single Korean have to visit the Chinese visa center in Seoul or some other cities in Korea, so which is quite a hassle because we I had to wait more than a couple of hours to just get a visa because they physically need my I say the fingerprint, but we have to submit our fingerprints at the on site. So it was as a result, I had to spend quite a lot of time to be in China.
Minky, have you ever gone to China?
Maybe I've been to China for 3 times or 2 times. I'm not sure.
Oh,
That
already a lot as well. Nice.
when I was young, it was I don't want to say it was a culture, but it was somewhat common that the family goes to China for travel. Like, even though I was in countryside, I mean, a lot of people went to China for eating Beijing duck. Or at that time, Beijing duck was quite famous, one of most like our bucket list food or something. And there's a place that maybe Jisang knows, Xi'an, which is the really famous capital city. I mean, old capital city of China. So, and it's a historical place. So, yeah, I mean, my parents really love to go to China for eating Beijing duck and
The duck,
to
Beijing duck. Okay, just a
Beijing
duck,
duck.
duck.
And oh,
It's famous.
that's
I think it's famous worldwide. And I think here as well. Like when you go to a Chinese restaurant, it's like, oh, the duck, the duck, the duck. I don't know if it lives to the expectations. How did you find it? Did you love it? The duck?
well, I was like elementary school. I
Okay,
mean,
very
so
young.
I don't remember, but what I remember is that China has a huge of population that at that time, like, and for now maybe. So Jisang felt more. I mean, in these days, China, I'm not sure the exact number, but they have a huge Yeah, I mean population still.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt, no doubt. So interesting that you guys visited already three, four times. I mean, I guess it's close by. I'm surprised by the visa thing. I went there once to China as well. It did require me a visa, of course, but since I did some sort of a tour with an agency, they did all that paperwork for me. I just have to had to pay like I don't know, 100 euros, and then they returned the passport with the big stamp on it that said, okay, you are allowed to enter the country. Very nice.
I
Um,
think it used to be the same here in Korea as well, but after COVID, all the procedures has been
From
changed.
where? From Spain? No.
No, 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 no. I mean,
Ah, okay, okay.
for us as well. We didn't have to go to the visa center offline, but nowadays the fingerprinting has been created, so which requires us to be there.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's the whole like surveillance thing that they have in China. I mean, you always see in the news like, okay, this city now they have special cameras that track you everywhere, or these fingerprint readers, eye scanners, and then they are very like focused on surveillance and yeah, it's a little bit scary. My experience with China was a little bit like I was not expecting, like, but maybe in a bad way. So I landed in Beijing, and 5 minutes after I was there, they were already like trying to rip me off in the taxi. So 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 it's not a great experience when you land on a country and they're trying already to take your money. Not in like in a violent way, but they wanted to charge me like a lot more than what the actual trip is. And because I didn't know, because I didn't do my research, because I was supposed to go in a tour, with an agency, and I said, okay, I'll just go. I end up paying way more for the taxi ride. Luckily, the agency like reimbursed me, but I was like, man, that's not the greatest start to to welcome me in the country. Yeah. Also, something that I did not, I mean, at least something that I don't do here or nor in Korea or Japan or all the countries is like to negotiate prices. When you go to buy something and they see your face, okay, you are from Europe or American, and they say this is 1,000 yuan or whatever it is, and you gotta go down and say no, 100. Like that extreme. Like maybe they say 1,000 and you have to go 50 or 100, and until you meet a price that they are okay with it, or you're so aggressive. And that's something I don't know how to do very well, right? So at the end of the trip, I was sort of more used to it, and then I was more comfortable on being aggressive. But at the beginning, I was like, yeah, right. But when you think about the exchange rate for the currency there, it's not that much of a difference. But then you think, but they're ripping me off. So it's like, why would you do that? I mean, I don't know. I don't like it. I like the Korean way. I don't have to negotiate anything. How would you sang? Are you comfortable negotiating prices when you go to China to buy stuff?
Uh, Actually, amazingly, at least in this trip, I didn't encounter that kind of situation. That's actually one of the examples of my new new experience in this trip. I mean, the thing that I mentioned is the thing that went above my expectation, because the last time I went to China was already 10 years ago, and it was obviously not the biggest cities in China. So all my memories and experiences are like probably similar to the ones that you have, like, so to speak, some not so fancy things were everywhere, including doing bargains whenever you buy some souvenirs or some foods. But as I told you in the beginning, Shanghai was pretty much developed city, and like obviously I can see that the wealth of the city itself is quite huge. So I didn't actually have any chance to negotiate or talk about the price when I buy the things.
Yeah, makes sense. Sure, maybe yeah. I mean, I remember Shanghai being super like yeah, the skyscrapers and tall banks and all those things, but also the contrast, right? The contrast of having a very tall building and next to it a super small shop by a small lady, more a little bit like you find in Japan and things like that, right? So not as much in Seoul, I think, but in other countries where it's like too much contrast between buildings and rich poor, those things.
Is Yeah, especially, I mean, to be honest, most of the restaurants and shops that I visited in this trip, they had prices even higher than the average prices in Seoul.
Interesting.
Seriously, yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so prices again. Prices. This is something that I had a bad experience there. I don't know where were we. I don't know if it's in Beijing. I don't remember what was in the trip, but we went to a restaurant, and I was with another guy from the tour, and they gave us like a menu for tourists, which had inflated prices, right? Because they gave us the menu, and immediately we went to the other table and we pick up another menu that was already lying there, and it was so much different. And I'm like, oh man, really? So we just left and went somewhere else where the prices were already visible from the outside, like in a billboard, right? And that thing's just that it degrades the experience of traveling, because I'm like, man, I'm constantly being trying to get my money, and I'm like, I'm visiting your country, I want to contribute to your economy, I want to just spend my euros into your country, right? So just don't try to rip me off. It's the only thing I'm I'm asking. So yeah, Xi'an was nice. How did you like it, Minky? Xi'an was very nice city.
Shanghai,
Oh, yeah, Xi'an.
Xi'an, Xi'an.
Yeah, the capital.
Actually, in Xi'an, what I remember is like tomb. There's a huge tomb in Shanghai. In that
The
Xi'an.
soldiers, no, the soldiers of
Yes,
how
the
are they
soul.
called?
How do we call it in English? I'm
In
not sure
Spanish
that.
is terracotta. In Spanish,
Yes, yes,
terracotta.
yes. This is the soldiers are made of soil, right?
Yeah, yeah, soil. Yeah,
Yes,
something like that.
mud
Yeah,
or something.
yeah.
So
Perfect.
there are hundreds of soldiers, and when you see that, you don't know what that is. You just feel, wow, this is huge. And until now, it's even though it's like 20 years ago, now sometimes I remember that time. So the reason is that now I start to work, and I start to work. These days I want to work nicely, or how can I progress at my work. And suddenly that tune comes up in my head, and I asked to myself a question: how that emperor united whole of the China. I mean, the China is a huge country. At that time was bigger than, I mean, maybe now the United States, like United States, is the number one country in the world at that time. So this, yeah, I mean, that impression still influenced to me. I don't remember at all, nothing at all but the tomb.
Yeah, yeah. Same here. I think as you when you enter like the sort of like building where they have the soldiers there, it's really impressive. I mean, when you think about how old that place is, like how do they do that like in the past? No, it's like right now it would be easy with technology, right? Because you have the tools and the technique, and of course, but back then it's like, oh man, how do you do that? What also was very impressive to me was the Chinese Wall. Did you guys visit it? Yes, of course, everybody goes there. So I don't know exactly where did I visit it, because I think there are several open like places, because it's something it's in ruins. At the beginning, there was many people, but I walked like maybe 10 minutes, like through the wall, and then I was alone. And it also was very like, oh man, this is, I don't know. Let's just say being kids, it's hard to describe, but the feeling of being somewhere where it was so old and so historic place.
Nowadays, some of historic people say that that was not the impulsive, like, what how can I say, that was not the, like, that hard job. There was a job that country gave the worker for working. I mean, for giving them food. There was one way to give them the official job.
No, but still,
There's
the
there.
ambition of that government back then, that king,
Mhm.
whomever was, I don't know the full story, but the ambition of saying, I'm going to wall the whole country so the invaders
Yes,
cannot
yes,
come
yes,
in.
yes.
That's very. Um, I think it's
Fantastic.
very like in the US, USA recently with Trump and everything, the same thing, the wall for Mexico, but back then, right? Back then with no technology and just yeah, it's very impressive.
Jisang, what was your favorite food at this trip?
Favorite food? Uh, I went to a couple of restaurants where I can try some local cuisines. But honestly, the local cuisine wasn't that of my style. I mean, I'm not so picky about the food, but even though I went to some nice and neat restaurant with a certain price, but the foods weren't that tasty as I expected. So uh, I went to Shanghai with my girlfriend, and she used to live in Shanghai for I mean, for 5 or 6 years. So she was quite, as a confident in searching for the restaurants where they serve the foods that I might like. And she took me on the last night. She took me to a restaurant, and it said the restaurant serves the food from northeastern area of China, which is quite far from Shanghai. And I figured out that all the foods that they have there were the Chinese foods that we Koreans know here. So, in other words, most of the Chinese dishes that Korean people know are the foods from Northeast Asia of China, and those were the best food in my trip. Probably those were the foods that I'm quite familiar with, but anyhow, the all the dishes were tasty there.
Interesting. In Spain as well, like I don't know how or how it came to be, but if you go across Spain to any Chinese restaurant that is like mid-low level, you always encounter the same things. It's always rollo primavera, like spring roll. It's always like chicken with almonds or beef with oyster sauce, whatever. And it's all the same thing everywhere, right? But that's not something when you go here in Barcelona, you go to a more authentic place. Like you see that, okay, it's not for tourists or for locals, but actually you see Chinese people going in there. There's nothing like that. There's no like chicken with almonds or sweet and sour pork, nothing like that. So I'm very curious that what you found on there on Shanghai was similar to what you have in Seoul. Interesting. Was it spicy? Because I remember in Shanghai we went to a restaurant and just to try, right? And I remember that I have the picture somewhere in my computer. It was like shrimp, but there were more like small red chilies than a shrimp. It was like a bed of red chilies or red spicy things, and on top there were some shrimps, and it was the most. I mean, I could not possibly finish that. It was so spicy. Yeah, no, not even Korean level. It was maybe they were making fun of me. Oh, look at the white guy now. He will eat the whole thing. Laughing from the kitchen. I don't know, but yeah, it was very spicy. How about you, Minky? What did you like about their food?
I went to Shanghai maybe 5 years ago or 6 years ago. What I remember was noodle. I mean,
What's that?
I'm not sure. Well, I'm not sure how can I translate huntun, which is the like noodle with soup.
Ah, okay.
It looks like ramen, but it
Japanese. Okay,
but it's not ramen. The noodle is the type of noodle is quite different, and
okay.
actually I like the soup. I prefer the soup than to ramen because so far I'm not sure what ingredients were there. It's just cheap, and when you eat it, it's just even though it's cheap, it's just you can feel it. This is like family dish.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, with family. I mean, with my
Hmm.
parents, with your even or girlfriend, or maybe in the future the children. Everybody will like it. We just you can just eat it, and oh, it's great.
I
Kind
think
of
you are
different.
a soup type of guy. All these years I've known you, you always like soups. When we go to Korea,
Oh
always
yeah, of course, yeah.
you like the soup things. Yeah, so
Mhm.
yeah, that doesn't surprise me that you like the Chinese soup. Interesting. Yeah, I don't remember anything particularly like outstanding. Like, surely I remember dishes in South Korea that were fantastic, and I'll remember for life, or in Japan. But when I went to China, there was nothing like super outstanding. Like, so everything was okay, meat and above maybe, but nothing like I'd say, oh, I need to travel back to eat it again as I do in Korea. I need to go back now. All this samgyeopsals and all those things we have there. It's amazing. So yeah, now I'm hungry. Thank you. What else? I don't know. Yeah, as I was saying before, I don't know if I'm repeating myself, but from Spain, there's not much interest in actually visiting China. So maybe Hong Kong, maybe it is so far, right? But when I talk to colleagues and friends, they usually think about first Japan, of course, and then South Korea, and then maybe if we're talking about all these countries nearby, maybe Hong Kong rather than mainland China. So it's interesting.
You know, one funny thing here, I think it's quite similar here as well. I mean, in our generation, most of our friends would love to visit Japan. I mean, multiple times a year, but I know a lot of friends who never visited China. So even though those two countries are quite close to Korea, I mean, the people's perception is, in my opinion, different.
Well, it's even
Jap-
closer, no? I think Seoul to Tokyo is like 2 hours, and Seoul to Beijing 1.5.
Yeah, so I mean, the physical time itself is similar, and even as you mentioned, Shanghai and Beijing, some other cities are even closer. But I don't know. The we are more familiar with the. We usually connect the image of travel, international travel, to that of Japan rather than that of China. I don't know why, but as I mentioned in the beginning, probably the visa thing may affect, but I don't know, the all the basic environment of the tourism itself is more developed in Japan, and some other reasons combined, I guess.
What I'm not sure this is related or not, but in my opinion, 10 years ago, more people went to China for travel. Or from the TV, there was quite well, we could watch many TV programs that about traveling to China. But nowadays, the China is quite close, in my opinion, more close. I mean, they don't really, they are not really that open to tourists, or they don't they don't care actually these days. With the economy or politics or even the tour, they are just okay with themselves. I mean, but they travel a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder. I mean, I'm surprised that you guys, when you say Jisang, you've been there 16 times to Japan, and I wonder if it's also like a generation, because with all the wars and invasions from Japan to Korea, you still guys. I mean, okay, it's not your generation, but maybe your parents or grandparents' generation would feel, as Minky is saying, maybe more inclined to visit China rather than maybe Japan. No,
Probably.
historically, perhaps, I don't know.
And this is also my personal opinion, but I think the dishes in Japan are more familiar with the younger generation in Korea.
Dishes? You said dishes like eating?
So yeah, Japanese cuisine. Yeah, I
Oh
mean,
yeah, man.
most of the fancy cuisines in Japan are the ones that younger generations in Korea used to love. I mean, would love.
Oh yeah, man. Food in Japan. Goodness. Yep. Yep. Anything else on your side, guys, about China or traveling in general? I see you're tired. We should then sign off for today. Leave Minky to rest in his new apartment, and that's it. And we welcome the new week.
Are you in your room, Minky?
Yes, I mean, this is my own room. That
One of
is
the rooms,
no, no. Oh yeah, one of the room, but my what I try to say,
mine, and mine alone. Very
my
good.
own room that is not shared with any other, just me.
Nice studio for working and studying. Very nice, man.
Yes.
All right, then we thank the listeners. If the listeners have any questions for us regarding Jisang's trip to China, please drop them below. And if you've traveled to China, also leave us a comment and say, what did you like best or what did you hate most? And we'll see you all next time. You guys, thank you so much.
See you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.